My wife and I, both in our late 20s, had our first child together in June. Before he was born, there was a lot of talk about names from different family members on both sides, but the pressure to tell was on my side specifically. We didn't tell a soul what the name would be until our son was born and we had left the hospital. My parents were disappointed when we announced our son's name. My family is very traditional in how they named us. We were each named after grandparents, and that's how they feel everyone should name their children. My wife's family doesn't have a tradition when it comes to naming babies. They just name them and go, with no fuss or insisting on certain names. But my wife's side tends to favor more uncommon and unusual names. My wife's and my taste tends to lean a lot more towards her side than to mine, which is how we ended up choosing the name Hollis for our son. This was not something my parents liked because they expected our son to be either Jack, my dad, or Parker, my father-in-law. But I know they were expecting a little Jack to be born, so that added to their reaction. They quizzed us on our choice to break tradition, and I told them it wasn't a tradition my wife's family used, and we decided we weren't going to have one either. Over the last couple of months, both parents have questioned why and have wanted to discuss other names for future babies. My mom has been the worst by far. She asked why we went with something so unlike the names we have in our family. I told her our family wasn't the only family involved, but that we also didn't take the family tastes into account. We went with what we liked. She pointed out our tastes were a lot like my in-laws, and I said yes, but that it wasn't about my in-laws and their taste. It was about my wife's and my taste. I told her I was done discussing it, and since that point, I now change the topic or end the conversation when she brings it up or refuses to let it go. We had a little naming ceremony on Saturday, and my mom decided she was going to dig in her heels about the name. She told me we'd picked a stupid name, and she hated it. She wanted us to change it and name him Jack or Parker. She told me we had no business breaking a long-held tradition in our family. And there's a reason those traditions are there, so foolish people can't name their babies the worst names imaginable. She also said my in-laws must be so smug thinking they'll have at least 2 stupidly named grandchildren, just like they had all stupidly named kids. I lost my temper. I told her to be quiet and accept that we're not naming our children like she and my dad named me and my siblings. And I told her she would need to leave and learn to be more respectful because I would not take those insults against my wife or her family lying down. My mom hated being told to be quiet, and she said I had no excuse for rudeness to her face. I thought she was unreasonable when she was rude. Am I the one in the wrong, though? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. No, they are not the authority. It's as simple as this. If the child isn't theirs, they don't get to decide the name. If they have a naming tradition, it doesn't matter. It's still not their child, so it's not their decision. They have no right to insist the name be changed, and they shouldn't criticize the name, you or your wife, for picking that name instead of a name they wanted you to choose. Tell them to either grow up and accept the name, or they can look forward to not seeing their grandchildren. Comment 2. Your parents are just stubborn older individuals, expecting the values they placed on their traditions to naturally transfer to the newer generation. It doesn't work like that. With new generations come different exposures, leading to different values. No, they are not the authority. Good on you for supporting your wife. Your mother needs to be put in her place, though. If she doesn't back down, give her an ultimatum you can stand firm on. Then it's her choice. Now for the update. 2 weeks after the whole mess at the naming ceremony, my mom texted me inviting us to a family dinner for my dad's birthday. Honestly, I was kinda on edge about it. I mean, I knew my mom would probably bring up the name issue again, and I just wasn't ready for that. But I also didn't want to be the bad guy not showing up for my dad's birthday. So I talked about it with my wife, and she suggested we go to avoid more drama, but we needed to set some clear boundaries. Things got real when we pulled up to my parents' house. The vibe was off from the start, like there was something everyone was pretending wasn't there. The dinner table was set with all of my dad's favorite dishes, and I could tell my wife was trying to relax and enjoy it. But then I noticed my mom was being unusually quiet. Like, she didn't even complain about the fact that we were 20 minutes late. Now, that's a sign that something's up. So, we all settled in, and my dad tried to lighten the mood with some of his classic terrible dad jokes. I'll give him credit. He knows how to make us laugh, even when things are awkward. But right after a few rounds of laughter, my mom suddenly got serious out of nowhere. She asked when my wife and I planned to have more kids. My wife, being the absolute gem that she is, politely said we were happy with Hollis for now, which totally wasn't what my mom wanted to hear. I could see my mom thinking hard. She then brought up Hollis's name again, saying it sounded more like a last name. Like, seriously? After all this time, she was still stuck on that? Later in the evening, my younger sister Kate, who was sitting next to my mom, chimed in, suggesting we consider traditional names for future children. That was the last straw. We were right back to the same old argument about family traditions. My mom was all about insisting on the importance of carrying on the family legacy, and Kate was right there with her. My wife, feeling totally cornered, shared how much we loved the name Hollis and explained its significance to us. My mom just dismissed her explanation, though, saying it was just a phase and we'd regret it later. I felt my blood start to boil. I finally snapped and told my mom to stop undermining our choices. I mean, come on, enough was enough. My dad tried to intervene, saying this wasn't the time or place for arguments, but that only made things worse. The mood shifted completely, and my mom started tearing up, claiming she just wanted what was best for her grandchild. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside, insisting we talk privately. She accused me of being disrespectful and not valuing family opinions. I was done at that point. I just walked away and went back to my wife, who was chatting with Kate in the living room. I caught my dad's eye as I walked in, and he came over to say he understood both sides, but hoped we could find some common ground. We left the dinner early, and I vowed to limit contact with my parents for a while. A few days later, I got a call from my mom asking if we could meet to talk things out. I declined, saying I needed time to think about our relationship. She called again and left a voicemail expressing her disappointment. A week later, I got an unexpected message from my dad asking for a family get-together to clear the air. I told my wife I wasn't interested because I was worried it would just reignite old arguments. She supported my decision and reminded me that we needed to prioritize our family dynamics. I decided we needed a break from all this drama, so I made plans for a weekend getaway with my wife and baby. As we were packing, my phone buzzed with another text from my mom, asking if we were coming to see the baby. I left it unanswered. Honestly, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I needed to create some serious boundaries. The getaway was super refreshing. It really allowed us to focus on our new family without all the outside noise. On the last day, I got a notification about some family photos that were posted online from the birthday dinner. I clicked on it, and there was a picture of my mom looking really upset. It just hit me, you know? I realized that it was time to make a decision. I was leaning towards officially cutting ties. I knew it might be a permanent solution to the ongoing conflict, but honestly, I thought it might be what's best for everyone involved. To answer a few questions, my dad was the one who organized the birthday dinner, hoping to ease the tension. My wife and I explained the name's significance during the ceremony, but my mom dismissed it. The family photos were taken by my sister, who posted them to show support for my mom. Am I the idiot for cutting off my parents after they adopted my bully? My parents started fostering when I was 6 years old. My younger brother was 3 at the time. I never had a problem with it. It was normal, and I got along with a lot of the foster siblings who came to live with us. This then changed with Amy. I met Amy in 2nd grade. She was new to my class, and we just did not get along. I remember other kids saying she was mad at me, and I had no idea why. We only knew each other for a few days at that point. I remember thinking if she was mad at me for nothing, then I was mad at her. We clashed a lot. Then in 3rd grade, she started bullying me. She would throw my lunch on the floor and step on it. She would make up lies about me farting to get other kids to make fun of me. She told the teacher she wouldn't sit or work with Freaky Eye. I have a scar across my left eye. She would also say I was evil, like Scar from The Lion King. The scar gave her plenty of ammunition, and eventually I became very self-conscious about this. My parents knew about the bullying, and they were called in to speak to teachers and the principal about it. Turns out Amy was a foster kid. Guess who decided to take her in? My parents. We were 10. My parents decided to adopt her. My parents were asked how I felt about it by a lot of people. They lied and said I was good with it, and I was excited to help Amy and get along with her better. It was a lie. I screamed the house down when I found out and begged my parents not to. My brother didn't like Amy either. She had used him against me so many times at school, and he knew about it. My parents blamed me for my brother and Amy not getting closer. When I was 15, we had this really big fight. My parents told me Amy was as much my sibling as my brother was, and they weren't happy that I didn't acknowledge her as such. I told them I never would, that they could adopt her 100 times, and I still wouldn't call her my sister. I told them they chose helping her over protecting me. I told them I wished she had stayed in foster care forever, and that nobody had ever loved her because she was a bully, and I was tired of being her target. I told them she had won, though. She had them, and I would never see them the same way again. A year later, Amy and I got into a fight, and I was allowed to go and live with my grandparents. My parents tried to keep in touch with me, but I made no effort. Eventually, I started telling people my parents had lied about me wanting them to foster and adopt Amy. People treated my parents differently as a result, and they confronted me about this 3 weeks ago. They showed up at my grandparents' house and said we needed to talk. They mentioned me calling them liars, and I said they were, and they became liars the second they started fostering Amy. My parents told me I had such a selfish outlook on the situation. I told them they chose Amy, so I didn't owe them or her a selfless outlook. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your parents are narcissists who prioritize the feel-good emotions and social currency they get from fostering over the feelings of their own children. I can't believe how damaging it must have been to have your tormentor taken into your safe space. What they did is unforgivable. They allowed you and your brother to be bullied in your own home and safe space. They also took a vulnerable foster child into a home with a child she, for whatever reason, had problems with, which can't have been healthy for her either. It's terrible from every angle. You should check out the Raised by Narcissists subreddit. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You don't owe them your explanation. You didn't do anything wrong. Your parents did because they put Amy above you, which is totally wrong and unfair. They knew she bullied you, yet they allowed her to move in and live with you. Oh, wow. I would move out right away instead of suffering for a long time. But you moved in with your grandparents, which is a good thing. They owe you and your brother their apologies for what they did to you. If they refused to see the reason why you wanted nothing to do with them, it's best to go no contact with them. Now for the update. 3 days after the whole mess with my parents, I got a text from my mom asking if we could meet. Honestly, I was kind of surprised. I thought they'd be done with me for a while after the whole "you've betrayed us" speech. She suggested we meet at this coffee shop near my grandparents' place, where I used to hang out with my friends. I was like, okay, maybe they want to talk this out like adults? So I agreed. I arrived early, which is something I always do when I'm not sure about what's going to happen. I ordered a coffee and just sat there, feeling all kinds of anxious. Wasn't in the mood to deal with drama, but I had a feeling it was coming anyway. My mom got there first, and she looked super nervous. Like, that was definitely not her normal vibe. She's usually the one who makes everyone else squirm. She started with the whole "I love you and I miss you" thing, which was nice and all, but then she had to bring up Amy. Of course. My dad showed up a few minutes later, and it felt like some kind of awkward family meeting that I never signed up for. They started asking me to reconsider my stance on Amy, saying she needed support. Support? Seriously? I mentioned how she bullied me for years, and my dad just brushed it off like kids can be cruel. Yeah, no kidding, Dad. You think? He went on and on about how it wasn't fair to judge her for her past and insisted that she's part of the family now. Well, I guess I wasn't part of the family when you guys decided to adopt her. Huh? I told them they chose to ignore my pain for the sake of adopting her, and that's when things escalated. My mom started crying, saying I was pushing them away. My dad lost it and started yelling, calling me selfish and saying I needed to grow up. Like, okay, Dad, who's the one acting like a child here? I told them I didn't want to talk about this anymore and got up to leave. As I was walking out, I heard my dad call after me, saying I was making a mistake. I don't really think so. I went home after that and decided I was done with them for good. A week later, I got an invite to my brother's birthday party. I thought about going for like 2 seconds, but then remembered that Amy would be there, so no thanks. I was surprised to see a message from my brother asking why I wasn't showing up. I replied, telling him it was better for me not to be around Amy. He flipped out and accused me of being a child and ruining his day. Dude, it's your birthday. How is me not being there ruining it? A few days later, I saw a post on social media with my entire family at the birthday party. Amy was in the center of the photo, all smiley with my brother and parents. I couldn't take it anymore. I started telling some relatives how my family had turned their backs on me. This led to a couple of family members reaching out, expressing concern about the situation. Like, where were you guys when all this was happening? I got a call from my aunt who wanted to mediate a conversation between us. I declined, feeling like it would just lead to more of the same crap. 2 weeks passed, and I got a call from my parents demanding that I come to Thanksgiving dinner. They insisted it was time to reconcile and that Amy would be there. I told them I wouldn't be part of a family that didn't respect my feelings. Then I just hung up. A few days later, I learned my brother and Amy were planning to move in together. I sent one last message to my parents, stating I wouldn't be a part of their lives if Amy was included. They didn't respond, and that was the last time I reached out. Edit. After my last message to my parents, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I realized that trying to get my family's support was a pointless effort. Then my brother contacted me, upset that I hadn't congratulated him and Amy on their new place. He called me selfish for still being upset over what happened years ago. I told him that it was still fresh for me, and he had no idea how much pain it caused me. He responded by saying I was a bad brother. I cut off our chat, knowing that he and my family wouldn't understand. I also got a message from my grandparents expressing disappointment at my refusal to reconcile, but they didn't fully grasp the situation. Am I the idiot for cutting off my family after they trashed my wife's cooking? Ever since my dad was a kid, our family has done monthly family dinners, nicer ones than your average family dinner. It's something our family did when my siblings and I were kids too. We'd have grandparents over, and we'd all have a nicer dinner together. When my siblings and I grew up, we still did it. Instead of what happened before, where branches broke off over time and did their own thing, they decided we should include partners, spouses, and our kids as a whole into one dinner. By the time I was 19, the family had decided they would take turns hosting each month to lessen the burden. My wife was excited to be a part of them at first. We started during our relationship. I did the cooking to start, and then she took over after a while because she wanted to. My family had seemingly gotten along with my wife before this point, but they were overly harsh about her cooking, with the exception of my 2 younger siblings. She tried to make them happy, but no luck. I told them they could be kinder. They said she should cook better or cook different things. My wife didn't make anything they don't eat. But nothing was right. She grew frustrated, and I grew suspicious. So we hosted a couple of months ago, and I told my wife we were going to pretend I did the cooking, just to see. She told me she felt like they just weren't fond of her food. I pointed out nobody had the same amount of complaints as them, and they even criticized the steak and potatoes they all seemed to go crazy for. She went along with the plan, and when my family thought I had cooked it, they loved it. They said it was so good my wife had decided to let a real talent take over. That it was so nice to have something a little different, like curry, and all this very lovely stuff. My younger brother and sister weren't fooled, but they enjoyed watching the rest of the family dig a hole. When the rest of my family heard it was my wife's food and not mine, they tried so hard to backtrack on all the nice comments. The rest of the dinner went in tense silence, and my wife's eyes were opened. I told her I was done with these dinners and she was my priority. She felt a little bad. I told her we could have dinners with my younger brother and sister sometimes. It's less stress anyway. Now for an update. When we didn't show up to last month's dinner, or this one, my parents and siblings started asking questions. I told them each time we weren't going again, but missing 2 dinners made it sink in. They told me we needed to be there. I said, never again. My wife doesn't deserve their disrespect. I told them they ruined what they wanted by being unkind to her. They said I was overreacting, making very relationship-harming choices, and treating them badly for simply having issues with my wife's food. They also said to think of future kids and how they would miss out. Some of it got to my wife a little, which I have tried to reassure her about. Am I the one in the wrong? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. My father's family treated my mom poorly for over 30 years. My siblings and I cannot stand them. We don't take phone calls from them. We don't go to places we know they will be. We avoid them like the plague, even though my mother still tries to stand up for them and tells us they're family. Though it's frustrating, they never own up to their actions or apologize. They just want us to pretend we don't see it and fake being close for what? The sake of a family that makes you and the people you love miserable. Comment 2. Good for you. Imagine you had children and they watched as your family tore their mother down constantly under the guise of keeping it real. No, they want to play stupid games and win stupid prizes. But this is probably why it's split into separate branches with your extended family. Someone was a jerk, someone else held a boundary, so they ended up going their separate ways but still wanted to maintain the tradition. Not the idiot. Now for the update. Family dinners. I thought they were supposed to be fun. Update on why we are cutting ties with my family. A couple weeks have passed since the last family dinner, and honestly, it's been a relief. Olivia and I have been enjoying our quiet evenings at home, just the 2 of us. Cooking together, watching movies, all that cute couple stuff. It's been nice to just not deal with the drama. But of course, my family has started reaching out, asking when we're going to join the next gathering. I've been ignoring the messages because, let's be real, I just didn't want to deal with it. But Olivia has been feeling guilty. She's way nicer than I am. She suggested that we attend the next family event, which is this Thanksgiving dinner they're planning. I was reluctant, to say the least. I really didn't want to go, but I could tell Olivia was pretty anxious about it all, so I agreed. I just want to support her, So, on the day of Thanksgiving, we arrive at my parents' house. From the moment we walked in, you could just feel the atmosphere was off. Not in a good way. My mom says it's nice to see us again, but not gonna lie, it felt forced. Like she was trying way too hard to be all happy and welcoming, and we all know why. Then the family starts talking about the food preparations and recipes, and I noticed my mom just dismissing Olivia's contributions to the meal. She put in so much work, and my mom just acted like it was nothing. This is what gets me. During dinner, the conversation shifted to family vacations. My older brother, Jake, starts boasting about their recent getaway to some luxury resort. He just keeps emphasizing how much they spent on the trip. Like, dude, chill out. Not everyone can drop that kind of cash. Olivia makes this casual comment about wanting to visit a place like that someday. His family chuckles, and my dad jokes about them needing a real job before doing something like that. Olivia looked so uncomfortable. After dinner, the family suggests playing some games, but Olivia seems really withdrawn. I notice her standing alone in the kitchen, avoiding everyone. I try to talk to her, but she brushes it off, saying she needs to help clean up. While washing dishes, I overhear my mom and sister talking about Olivia. They're mocking her cooking skills and saying that she just doesn't fit in with the family. Like, what the hell? After dinner, we all sit in the living room for a family photo. I insist that Olivia stand next to me, but my mom tries to position her away from me. She looks so uncomfortable, but she smiles through it for the photo. I snap a picture of the moment because I know I'll want to use it later. Then everyone starts discussing holiday plans for next year. My sister suggests this destination Christmas that requires a ton of money, and the family starts pressuring everyone to chip in for the trip, excluding Olivia, of course. That's when I finally snapped. I called them out on their behavior, and my mom tried to defend herself, saying it's all in good fun. I told them that we wouldn't be attending any more family events. You could just feel the tension rising. I decided to send the family the photo I took earlier. I captioned it, "Thanks for showing us where we stand," and added a few snarky remarks. The family just exploded on the group chat, accusing me of overreacting. I shut off my phone, and honestly, I felt a sense of satisfaction. We spent the next few days in peace, just free from all the family drama. But then, my mom calls me, begging to talk. She wants to resolve things. I told her we're done with the toxic environment. We're looking forward to spending the holidays on our terms without any family interference. I mean, I feel like such a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. Like, I get that it's my fam and all, but I just can't keep putting myself through that crap. Olivia's so much happier now, too. We actually have a life, you know? We talked about it and decided we're going to spend Christmas just us two, maybe even take a little trip somewhere. It'll be our own little holiday. No drama, no stress. It's kind of exciting thinking about how we get to make our own traditions. So yeah, I think we're going to be just fine. Wish me luck. Edit. After we cut off contact, my sister reached out and apologized for her behavior. She admitted that my mom pressured her to act that way. She also mentioned that my other siblings feel the same, but are afraid to speak up. We're considering reconnecting with them individually, but cautiously. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.